Bette Midler was once a storm sweeping through Hollywood, a singer who won 3 Grammys, an actress twice nominated for an Oscar, a star who turned the Broadway stage into a sold-out phenomenon. From a poor Jewish girl growing up by the beaches of Hawaii, often feeling out of place among her peers, she rose to become a pop icon, a stage and film star, and ultimately a Broadway legend. Midler never shied away from living by instinct and boldness, but behind the spotlight lay a childhood marked by bullying for being different, a sister's mental illness that left a lifelong scar, and a marriage that more than once stood on the edge of collapse. She could infuriate an entire film crew simply by refusing to wear a wig she despised. Yet she was also the mother who once panicked at the thought that her daughter might have to grow up in her enormous shadow. At 79, Midler returned to the stage in the full splendor of the divine Miss M. But when the curtain fell, she faced the silence and private sorrow that no audience would ever see. The story of Bette Midler, the divine Miss M, is therefore not only a hymn to fame and triumph, but also a long journey of contradictions. Between light and shadow, laughter and tears, the dazzling ego of the artist, and the quiet heart of a woman who has always longed for peace. Bette Midler was born on December 1, 1945, in Honolulu, Hawaii, into a Jewish immigrant family of Polish and Ukrainian origin. Her father, Fred Midler, worked as a house painter and took on additional jobs at the U.S. Naval Base to support the family. Her mother, Ruth, quietly sewed at home. Amid such hardship, their third daughter was named after movie star Bette Davis, though with a twist in pronunciation. Within the family, her name was shortened to a single syllable, Bet, a plain, clipped sound that in some way foreshadowed the strong-willed character she would later become. Midler's childhood was far from easy. She grew up in a neighborhood largely populated by Asian families, where differences in skin color and religion often made the small Jewish girl the target of teasing. The family's poverty only deepened her sense of inferiority. But the deepest wound came from her younger sister, Judith, who suffered from schizophrenia from an early age. Judith's uncontrollable episodes left lasting scars in Bette's heart, teaching her to mask her pain and seek refuge in imagination and music. The only person who truly recognized the spark in her was her mother. Ruth not only kept the family afloat with her skillful hands, but also encouraged her daughter's artistic leanings. She patiently listened to Bette sing, introduced her to musical theater, and believed her voice could carry her far. When Bette was just in first grade, she sang Silent Night in a small competition and unexpectedly won. To the little girl, it was a fleeting moment. To her mother, it was a sign. Her daughter might one day escape the cramped walls of their poor neighborhood through her voice. From then on, Midler immersed herself in the world of Hollywood musicals. She followed Judy Garland and the Andrews sisters, studying how they walked onto a stage, how they could command an audience with nothing more than a glance or a shrug. These observations gradually turned into a natural instinct for performance. By the time she attended Radford High School, the once outcast girl had become the center of attention. Loud, theatrical, impossible to ignore, Midler both amazed and impressed her classmates. They voted her most dramatic and most talkative. In 1963, she graduated as valedictorian, proof that behind the flamboyance of a girl with a flair for drama was a sharp mind and a burning desire to break free from the boundaries of Hawaii. After graduating from Radford High School as valedictorian, Bette Midler did not choose the safe path many of her peers followed. She enrolled in the drama department at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, hoping to turn her passion into a real career. But the dry theory lessons and endless script analyses could not hold a soul that only felt fulfilled when performing before a live audience. Midler felt as if she were trapped in a room with no windows. After 3 semesters, she made a bold decision to drop out, without any clear plan in place. Then an unexpected opportunity arrived. In 1966, Hollywood came to Hawaii to film the epic Hawaii. Midler managed to land a tiny background role, so small it wasn't even credited, as a Jewish girl in one of the crowd scenes. For her, it was nothing short of a miracle. The paycheck wasn't much, but it was enough to buy a one-way ticket out of Honolulu to New York, the place she believed would decide her destiny. With an old suitcase and a burning dream, Midler boarded a plane, leaving behind the shores of Hawaii and a childhood full of insecurities, hurling herself instead into the dazzling yet unforgiving lights of Broadway. In New York, Midler started from nothing. She auditioned everywhere, taking small roles in off-Broadway productions like Miss Nefertiti Regrets and Cinderella Revisited, performing on cramped stages before just a few dozen people helped her harden her craft. And then a turning point came. At the end of 1966, she joined the cast of Fiddler on the Roof, one of Broadway's hottest shows at the time. At first, Midler was a nameless face in the chorus, standing at the back, barely noticed. But she refused to remain in the background. With patience, persistence, and an instinctive command of the stage, Midler gradually proved herself. She carefully observed how the lead actors delivered each line, how they engaged the audience, and wove those lessons into her own small gestures. Her effort paid off. By 1968, Midler was promoted to the role of Tzeitel, the eldest daughter of the protagonist Tevye. It wasn't just a bigger part. It was proof that the small girl from Hawaii could rise within the cutthroat world of Broadway. From 1966 to 1970, Midler worked tirelessly in Fiddler on the Roof. Night after night, as she sang Matchmaker, Matchmaker under the stage lights, she learned to read the rhythm of the audience, to turn every gesture into a story. This was her true school, the place where she sharpened her skills, forged her willpower, and discovered the strength that would fuel her later breakthroughs. When she finally left Broadway, the road ahead seemed uncertain, but Midler found an unexpected stage, the Continental Baths, a gay nightclub in the basement of the Ansonia Hotel. The audience was small, mostly men, but the atmosphere was both free and electric. With Barry Manilow at the piano, Midler was free to explode, singing cracking jokes, performing in outrageous costumes. It was there, in this so-called fringe space, that she experimented and built a unique persona, the divine Miss M. This persona was more than just an entertainer. It embodied humor, theatricality, flamboyance, yet also vulnerability and fragility. The LGBTQ+ community quickly recognized in her a kindred voice, both bold and unapologetically authentic. From a bathhouse singer, Midler became the underground goddess of New York, a cultural phenomenon waiting to burst into the mainstream, and the first step in her transformation into an icon. After 4 years under the lights of Broadway, Bette Midler finally had her true world debut. In December 1972, she released her first album, The Divine Miss M. This was not just a collection of songs, it was an artistic manifesto, the culmination of all her experiments at the Continental Baths. There, Midler had forged a unique style, a blend of mainstream pop with the soul's raw edge, steeped in the spirit of Broadway theater, spiced with bold humor and a touch of fragility. All of it was compressed into the divine Miss M, creating music that was feverish and theatrical, yet still left space for moments of vulnerability behind the glittering facade. The album quickly made a splash. Upon release, it climbed to number 9 on the Billboard 200, a rare feat for a debut artist. Soon after, the Divine Miss M went platinum in both the US and Canada, proving Midler was no passing fad. Audiences rushed to hear a voice that felt both strange and familiar, while critics marveled at the way she bent the definition of pop music itself. 3 cornerstone songs became deeply etched in Midler's career. Do You Want to Dance was reinvented with youthful energy, turning an old tune into an irresistible invitation. Friends was simple yet heartfelt, striking a chord with its sincere tribute to friendship, a theme rarely explored in pop at the time. And most notably, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, the Andrews Sisters' wartime hit from the 1940s, was reborn with Midler's modern fire. Her cover not only evoked nostalgia, but also climbed into the top 10 of the Billboard Adult Contemporary and Hot 100 charts, bridging two generations of listeners. With The Divine Miss M, Bette Midler proved she was no longer just a bathhouse phenomenon, but a singer stepping into the ranks of true stars. The album was her passport out of New York's underground scene and onto the global stage, proof that instinct and daring could indeed create a legend. Neither critics nor audiences could look away. Robert Christgau of Rolling Stone called Midler a game changer, someone who turned every song into a dramatic performance. In 1973, just a year after her debut, she won the Grammy Award for Best New Artist, an official confirmation that The Divine Miss M was now a brand of its own. What made Midler stand out was not just her music, but her stage persona. She built a flamboyant performance style, drenched in color, spiced with bawdy humor, often stirring controversy. But that audacity was precisely her essence. Different, uncompromising, and fearless enough to challenge convention. From here on, the name Bette Midler became inseparable from an artistic identity that fused extravagance, comedy, and drama into a force of explosive charisma. Following the triumph of The Divine Miss M, Bette Midler didn't stop at the recording studio. She unleashed that explosive energy on stage, turning every concert into an unpredictable spectacle. In 1976, she launched the Depression Tour, a bizarre, chaotic, colorful journey where music mixed with comedy, outrageous costumes, and biting satire that left audiences both roaring with laughter and quietly moved. The tour was filmed and aired on HBO as The Bette Midler Show, one of the rare occasions at the time when American television dared to put such a provocative female artist on screen. With one broadcast, Midler proved she could dominate both the stage and the small screen, bringing the Divine Miss M persona into millions of homes. But Bette Midler's true turning point came in 1979 when she stepped into film, an arena where not every singer could survive. She took on the role of Mary Rose Foster in The Rose, a fictional character woven from the tragic fragments of Janis Joplin's life. Mary Rose embodied a rock star at her peak, torn apart by the pressures of fame, dependence on alcohol and drugs, and suffocating loneliness behind the stage lights. Midler approached the role not as an imitation, but as a complete transformation. She stripped away the flamboyant humor that had defined her image and immersed herself in breakdowns and chaos. On screen, every bloodshot glance, every ragged breath, every collapse mid-song sent chills through the audience. Viewers no longer saw Bette Midler. They saw a soul setting itself ablaze through song, as if she had borrowed Janis Joplin's pain and resurrected it on the screen. The Rose became an immediate sensation. Critics, who once dismissed the Divine Miss M as mere theatrical excess, dropped their prejudices. They admitted that Midler was a real actress, capable of raw, searing authenticity. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, an extraordinary leap for a first-time film performer, and won her a Golden Globe. The music of the film also left an indelible mark. The title track, The Rose, a sorrowful, simple, yet haunting ballad performed by Midler, became one of the defining songs of the 1970s. It won her a Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. More than 4 decades later, The Rose is still sung at weddings, funerals, and countless quiet moments when people need comfort. With The Rose, Midler shed the labels of bathhouse star and eccentric Broadway performer. She established herself as a multifaceted artist, capable of commanding both the concert stage and the silver screen. Above all, she proved that behind the flamboyant humor of the Divine Miss M lay a heart that could break, shatter, and turn that pain into art. After her breakthrough with The Rose, Bette Midler entered the 1980s determined not to let herself be typecast. She diversified her image, constantly experimenting with different genres, and quickly proved a rare ability to transform. 1986 marked her bold shift into comedy. In Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Midler played a neurotic, wealthy housewife whose seemingly perfect life is turned upside down by the arrival of a homeless man. The film was not only a box office hit, but also a milestone. It ushered in a new era of success for Disney through its Touchstone Pictures label. That same year, Midler further cemented her comedic stature with Ruthless People, co-starring Danny DeVito. The film's reverse kidnapping premise, in which the kidnapped wife ends up holding the upper hand, had audiences roaring. 2 consecutive hits grossing tens of millions made Midler the box office queen of comedy at the time. She didn't stop there. In 1987, she returned in outrageous fortune alongside Shelley Long. The story of 2 women who discover they're in love with the same man and are forced into an uneasy alliance produced a mix of absurdity and humor. Behind the scenes, Midler faced a personal challenge. She was 3 months pregnant when filming began and 6 months along by the end, yet still performed many of her own stunts. To conceal her pregnancy, she wore oversized costumes, a detail that later became one of her most famous anecdotes of perseverance. The film exceeded expectations, earning her an American Comedy Award and a Golden Globe nomination. A year later, Midler took on Big Business, 1988, a farce about 2 sets of identical twins switched at birth. With inventive split-screen techniques and nuanced acting, she embodied 2 entirely different characters, once again showcasing her versatility. Although critics were lukewarm, the film was commercially successful and gradually achieved cult classic status among devoted fans. Yet the emotional high point of the 1980s for Midler was not found in laughter, but in tears. Also in 1988, she starred in Beaches, a drama chronicling the decades-long friendship between singer CeCe Bloom, Midler, and Hillary Whitney, Barbara Hershey. Its portrayal of 2 women sharing triumphs and heartbreak resonated with millions, becoming one of Hollywood's most poignant films about friendship. The soundtrack elevated the film into a cultural phenomenon, especially the ballad "Wind Beneath My Wings," performed by Midler. The song shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming America's national anthem of gratitude, played at weddings, funerals, and countless private moments of tribute. In 1990, it won Midler 2 of the Grammy's top honors, Record of the Year and Song of the Year. Combined with the success of the film, the song forever etched Midler's name into cultural history as a singular emotional force, an artist who could make audiences double over with laughter and moments later break down in tears to an immortal melody. Entering the 1990s, Bette Midler continued to prove she wasn't just a star of the previous decade. She skillfully chose roles that were both entertaining and enduring, sometimes surpassing all expectations. In 1993, she took on the role of Winifred Sanderson in Hocus Pocus. The story of 3 witches resurrected in Salem on Halloween premiered to underwhelming reviews and was dismissed by critics as shallow. Yet time proved otherwise. Through repeated television airings and later DVD sales, Hocus Pocus became a Halloween institution, embraced by millions of American families as an annual fall tradition. Winifred, with her wild red hair, maniacal cackle, and show-stopping performance of "I Put a Spell on You," cemented Midler as a pop culture icon forever linked with the holiday. 3 years later, in 1996, Midler joined forces with Goldie Hawn and Diane Keaton in the box office hit The First Wives Club. The story of 3 women, abandoned by their husbands, uniting in witty revenge, struck a nerve. Grossing $181 million worldwide, it became one of the biggest successes of Midler's career. The now iconic scene of the three stars singing "You Don't Own Me" on stage transcended the film, becoming a feminist anthem for an entire generation of women in the late 20th century. In the years that followed, Midler sustained her image through a varied mix of comedies, television projects, and of course, music, an arena she never abandoned. Not every project was a smash, but Midler maintained her standing as a multi-platform artist, capable of making audiences laugh until breathless or quietly moved by a timeless ballad. Alongside the spotlight, stories of Midler's difficult personality often surfaced behind the scenes. One of the most repeated anecdotes was when she made an entire crew wait 2 hours because she refused to wear a wig she disliked. Rather than shy away from the reputation, Midler turned it into part of her act. She openly called herself hard to please, while insisting it was her way of protecting artistic integrity. That bluntness, sometimes controversial, became a hallmark of the divine Miss M, a woman unafraid to step outside the mold and live unapologetically true to herself. If Bette Midler's career was always dazzling, her private life carried many quieter, more complicated notes. At the height of her fame, she unexpectedly met the man who would stay by her side for nearly half her life, German performance artist Martin von Hasselberg. They crossed paths in the early 1980s at an artists' party in New York, where Midler was already a Broadway and recording star, while Martin was only known in the underground performance art world through his group, the Kipper Kids. He was not a glamorous Hollywood actor, nor the wealthy businessman the press often linked to Midler's name. Martin stood out for his eccentric air, boundless imagination, and witty, spontaneous humor. Most strikingly, he showed no sign of being intimidated by the divine Miss M, a woman long accustomed to men either idolizing her or shrinking from her fame. That nonchalance caught Midler's attention. In Martin, she saw another world. Less pressure, less calculation, but full of the freedom, playfulness, and wit she craved in the whirlwind of stardom. Friends recalled how Midler seemed swept into Martin's peculiar storm. He could turn an ordinary anecdote into a miniature play, transform a party into a stage, and, most importantly, make her laugh, something few men had managed to do. Their relationship moved at startling speed. Just weeks after meeting, Midler and Martin were already discussing marriage. The impulsive decision shocked friends and the media alike, since Midler was known for her perfectionism and reluctance to gamble with her personal life. Yet she believed she had found someone who could endure the contradictions, explosions, and extreme sensitivity of her artistic nature. On December 16, 1984, in Las Vegas, in a whirlwind ceremony, they officially became husband and wife. No glamorous wedding gown, no bridesmaids or groomsmen, just two artists standing before each other, pledging to embark on a journey neither knew where it would lead. To the press, it was a bombshell, an A-list Hollywood star marrying an obscure, eccentric performance artist. But to Midler, it was instinct and a challenge to the world. Love needs no formula, only someone brave enough to follow her through both light and darkness. Yet married life between Bette Midler and Martin von Hasselberg was never a bed of roses. Midler later admitted, "We almost divorced in the very first year." Two strong personalities, two worlds too different, clashed constantly. Midler was used to the bustle of Hollywood, overnight shoots, endless tours, the roar of applause and camera flashes. Martin, by contrast, was an artist devoted to eccentricity and solitude, preferring seclusion far from the noise. Those differences sparked fierce arguments. At one point, both thought their marriage might last only a few short months. Instead of giving up, they chose to face the challenge and learn how to adapt. Midler would later say, both bitterly and sincerely, "We had to remarry in our hearts many times to keep this marriage alive." The words acknowledged their recurring crises, but also testified to their relentless effort. They learned to stay silent when needed, to listen even when disagreeing, and most importantly, to accept that lasting love is not always a blazing fire, but the art of keeping embers from dying out. In 1986, a joyful turning point changed everything: the birth of their only daughter, Sophie von Haselberg. For Midler, becoming a mother upended her entire outlook on life. The flamboyant, fearless, divine Miss M turned into an anxious woman before her baby girl. Midler admitted she panicked at the thought Sophie might grow up under the crushing shadow of a famous mother, losing her own identity and forever being compared. Because of that fear, she resolved to raise Sophie as normally as possible. No extravagance, no flaunting. Midler personally took her to school, wanting her to have a childhood like any other child. The family lived privately, away from paparazzi. For Midler, this was not just parenting, but also a way to heal her own lonely youth, hoping her daughter would have a solid foundation and never need to run from someone else's shadow, as she once had. Still, balancing career and family proved difficult. Midler endured periods of stress and sadness when criticized for neglecting her family in pursuit of her career. During those years, Martin often played the role of keeper of the flame, reminding her that marriage and family needed nurturing as much as success. Midler often confessed it was Martin's patience and humor that carried their marriage through its storms. Today, after more than 40 years together, Midler and von Haselberg rarely flaunt affection publicly, but remain by each other's side. Their daughter Sophie has grown into an actress and screenwriter, proving she could carve out her own path despite the shadow of the divine Miss M. For Midler, family was never easy, but a long negotiation built on love, patience, and trust. Her marriage to Martin is therefore not a perfect fairy tale, but a journey of many near breakups and reconciliations. Amid the applause and the blinding lights, Midler found a place to return to, a man strong enough not to be consumed by his wife's fame, and patient enough to love her in his own way. After finding stability in marriage and motherhood, Bette Midler never slowed down. Once Sophie grew up, she channeled her energy back into art. But this comeback wasn't through a grand musical. It was through a grueling challenge, holding an audience alone for nearly 90 minutes. In 2013, she took on the role of Sue Mengers in I'll Eat You Last, a chat with Sue Mengers, a one-woman play about Hollywood's legendary super agent. No lavish song and dance, no co-stars to bounce off. Midler stood alone before the audience, dissecting backstage gossip with biting wit. The result exceeded all expectations. The show became a hit, recouping its costs in just 8 weeks, proving that Midler's appeal needed no gimmicks, only her own raw presence. 4 years later, in 2017, she returned to Broadway in what many saw as her destiny role, Dolly Gallagher-Levi in Hello, Dolly. This revival was not just anticipated, it became a cultural phenomenon from the first performances. Tickets sold out instantly, box office records at the Schubert Theater were shattered, and every night, Midler set the house ablaze with her charm, humor, and a voice still powerful in her 70s. The performance earned her the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical, the first Tony of her career, affirming her as one of the rare artists who could dominate music, film, and theater alike. After conquering the stage once again, Bette Midler proved her star power had not dimmed as she entered the 2020s. She returned to television in Netflix's The Politician, Season 2, 2020. As Hadassah Gold, a razor-sharp political strategist with a caustic tongue, Midler, alongside Judith Light, formed a witty, formidable duo. Her role didn't just draw laughs, it exposed the darker sides of political gamesmanship. Both critics and audiences praised her chameleon-like transformation, a testament to her versatility even in her 70s. Also, in 2020, Midler took on a completely different role in The Glorias, a biopic of activist Gloria Steinem. She played Bella Abzug, the famed U.S. Congresswoman and activist known for her wide-brimmed hats and fiery spirit. On screen, Midler brought Abzug to life with humor, grit, and explosive energy, making her not just a historical figure, but a vivid, breathing presence. Critics warmly lauded the performance, calling it one of the standout film roles of Midler's later career. After The Politician and The Glorias, many expected Midler to slow down. But at 79, she surprised everyone yet again. In 2024, she returned to the big screen in the comedy The Fabulous Four. She played Marilyn, a widow who shocks her close friends by announcing she plans to remarry just months after her husband's death. Filmed in Key West, the movie carried both humor and tenderness, co-starring Susan Sarandon, Megan Mullally, and Cheryl Lee Ralph. One of the most cherished moments came when Midler and Ralph sang "I Can See Clearly Now" together, a duet that was both funny and a nostalgic nod to their long friendship dating back to Broadway. The film quickly proved that stories about love, friendship, and renewal in later life could be just as captivating as any blockbuster. Alongside film, Midler sparked buzz in the Broadway world by revealing her wish to play Mame Dennis in Jerry Herman's Mame. She admitted candidly that, at 79, taking on such a demanding role would be a challenge physically, but declared it one she had always longed for. The rumor instantly ignited excitement. Fans flooded social media with anticipation, and theater insiders predicted that if Midler did return, it would be the final explosion, sealing her irreplaceable legacy on the Broadway stage. By 2025, she was no longer devoting herself to massive film or Broadway projects. Yet she continued to show that the divine Miss M never truly leaves the public eye. Instead of grand productions, she chose to appear in spaces where she could connect, contribute, and affirm a living legacy. Early in the year, Midler drew attention at the center's annual gala in New York, where she joined in honoring designer Michael Kors and Lance Lepere. In an elegant yet understated gown, Midler brought the same sharp wit and charm that defined her career, sparking laughter and applause with every word. The event reaffirmed that Midler was more than an artist. She was a cultural icon revered within creative and LGBT+ communities. True to her dual identity as artist and activist, in April 2025, she participated in an Earth Day campaign led by the New York Restoration Project, NYRP, the environmental nonprofit she founded in 1995. Appearing in video segments, Midler encouraged people to take simple steps toward a happy Earth Day. Her decades-long dedication to urban green spaces and environmental causes once again shone through, reinforcing her as a cultural figure who stands for more than performance alone. Outside of official events, Midler kept up personal connections with longtime colleagues and friends. She was spotted at Kathy Najimy's birthday celebration, her Hocus Pocus co-star. The joyful reunion quickly made headlines, reminding audiences that Midler and her legendary peers remain inseparable from the collective memory of popular culture. Today, Bette Midler no longer needs an Oscar role or a record-breaking Broadway run to prove her worth. A handful of appearances on a charity stage, in a call for environmental action, or among old friends is enough to remind the world that the Divine Miss M has never just been an artistic title, but a way of life, bold, loving, and always ready to surprise her audience. For nearly 6 decades, Bette Midler's legacy has never been confined to a single field. She stands as rare proof that it is possible to reach the very top in all 3 arenas: music, film, and theater. With more than 30 million albums sold worldwide, Midler has left behind a body of work ranging from lively hits, Do You Want to Dance, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, to immortal ballads, The Rose, Wind Beneath My Wings. Her music carried a signature blend, the theatrical flair of Broadway, the finesse of soul, and the accessibility of pop. 3 Grammy Awards, including Best New Artist, 1973, and Record of the Year, 1990, only skim the surface of the lasting impact she has had on audiences. On the big screen, Midler was twice nominated for an Academy Award, the Rose for the Boys, and won multiple Golden Globes, establishing that she was not merely a stage performer crossing into film, but a true actress. Her comedic turns in Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Ruthless People, and The First Wives Club made her a box office fixture, while her tragic portrayals, Mary Rose Foster in The Rose and C.C. Bloom in Beaches, cemented her as one of the rare women in Hollywood who could make audiences roar with laughter and break into tears within the span of a single decade. On Broadway, Midler once again reached the peak with Hello, Dolly, 2017, a record-breaking revival that earned her her first Tony Award. Alongside I'll Eat You Last, she proved her command of the stage never waned, even in her 70s. That very ability to own the room inspired a generation of younger artists, from Lady Gaga to Adele, who openly credit her fusion of theatricality and raw emotion as an influence on their own artistry. But Midler's legacy extends far beyond art. She is also a tireless activist. In 1995, she founded the New York Restoration Project, NYRP, transforming dozens of derelict lots into thriving community gardens, restoring green space to New Yorkers. She has also long been a powerful voice for LGBT+ rights, from her days singing at the Continental Baths to her status as a cultural legend. For Midler, the stage was never just entertainment. It was a tool for social change. Today, when people look back on the journey of the divine Miss M, they see more than a career filled with awards. They see the portrait of an artist who dared to be different, dared to be stubborn in preserving her identity, and never stopped fighting for what she believed in. Midler leaves behind a double legacy, both as a treasure trove of timeless art and as a symbol of the resilience of a woman in a world that has always been harsh on women. At 79, Bette Midler no longer has anything to prove. What sets her apart is not the number of trophies or unforgettable roles, but the way she has lived fully within her contradictions, both defiant and fragile, both flamboyant and quietly troubled. Her journey reminds us that fame can never fully mask loneliness, and that behind every laugh on stage lie long nights of silence. Perhaps that is why Bette Midler's story still lingers in people's minds. What matters more, to be remembered as a legend, or to finally find the simple peace one has been chasing all along? And you, when you think of the divine Miss M, do you see more of the dazzling spotlight, or the silhouette of a woman still searching for her own quiet refuge? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow for more true life stories behind the legends of the screen.